Black Mirror Season 7 is well and truly here, and I'm going to be going through every single episode and giving you my honest review of whether they're good or bad and giving you a score out of 10 at the end of it. After all of these videos, I'm going to be ranking this season as a whole compared to the other previous seasons of Black Mirror. But of course, Episode 1, Common People. Spoiler warning ahead. Starting off with the story, okay? The story of this episode was absolutely horrific, but in the best way possible. Okay, Black Mirror stories, more often than not, are horrific, leaving you feel devastated at the end of them, and this was exactly that. We have a loving married couple celebrating their 3rd anniversary as they go to where they got married and things like that. It's really nice. Then all of a sudden, like a subtle headache turns into something a lot worse. Okay, so Amanda has the headache and then collapses in her classroom as she's teaching, and we find out that she's got an inoperable brain tumor, which is absolutely polar opposite to how we were feeling in the beginning of the episode to suddenly feeling that. And in a scenario where that would be distraught and terrible, we hear of a newly advanced technology that could save her, Rivermind. We see Mike, of course, agree to the terms and conditions and sign the papers and get that tech into her brain. Of course, the actual idea of that was mental. We'll get into that shortly. So that new tech is implanted and we find out that it was a free surgery. So it's all good and gravy. Fantastic, thumbs up. And then that story just develops and it just gets worse and worse and worse for Amanda and Mike in ways that I don't think you can even begin to fathom when he first makes that decision. You know, any human being, anyone in a loving relationship, anyone who loves anyone in this earth would choose that decision. We would choose to save our loved one in that scenario by implementing this technology, unaware of the sick, twisted ways that it would hinder or harm or cause detriment, not just to, you know, the patient's life, Amanda, but also to his life and their life together. Everything comes crumbling down and it is just absolutely soul-sucking, especially when you understand where they were at. They were pursuing to having a child, hoping for a happy accident. Because of how they mention a few things, you can maybe determine that they may have had a miscarriage in the past, but are looking to keep trying in the future. And then so many things just go bad, and then you think they get better, and then you realize it's actually 10 times worse in this scenario than it ever could be if he just let her die. And I think that's what was the most harrowing thing about it. Is obviously he was sold something that was supposed to be saving his wife, which on paper it did, but in theory it made her live half a life, a worse life, but then worst of all, causing not just her life to end, but kind of his life as well. I think that was the most hard-hitting part about the story, and that's why I think this episode's fantastic. Let's move over to the concept, okay? The concept of this episode. Every Black Mirror has a concept. Technology, whether it's being used and implemented in the wrong way, or if it's society, or anything like that. This episode, as I said, was about the Rivermind technology. You know, there was an area of, I didn't really understand it. It was quite techie, but, you know, they took out an area of her brain. They created a carbon copy of it, technological copy of it, and then just kind of like streamed the information back to her brain, something like that. We all watched the episode, so I think we understand that. So yeah, these cell towers were, you know, sending out the brain waves to the area of her brain that was copied and transferred over. And at first, it's all fantastic. Yes, she's gonna have to sleep more often because, you know, it makes sense. She's using up data from this cell tower. It needs to have some off time so that it can re-establish itself or something. It all makes kind of sense because we all use our technology and we can understand why it would work out that way. And it just progresses worse and worse and worse. And I think the concept of the fact that this company made those decisions to up it and up it and up it to, what was it, Rivermind Plus, you just found out that they were actually, they were common people, regular people. They were on the common setting of it. And it led you to not live a life. So I think it's one of the ones that raises a question. This concept is why I really like it is, as I said before, anyone in that scenario, of any loved one that was in a similar situation would choose to take this free surgery to save their loved one's life. Of course you would. But it kind of asks and raises the question, is that worth it? Is that worse off? Are these new technologies that we're developing that, you know, will help us and cure us and keep us living longer, are they needed? Should we delve into them? Should we endorse them? Because we don't know what sick, twisted ways they could end up affecting us in the future. Now, this is very, you know, not like inhuman way that it happened. You know, this company were disgusting in their decisions, disregarding any regular person's life, as it's called, common people. They're disregarding those people. You can hope and fingers crossed that wouldn't happen if it happened in the future with these new technological advancements. But at the end of the day, in a capitalist society, in a capitalist world, these companies, their main prerogative is the money that they make. And if your life is dependent on what category you're on, it really raises the morality question of like, could these companies and these institutions, could they go down that route? Because they know that they literally have not just our attention span in their hands anymore, but they have our literal lives in their hands. And they knew what they were doing, and it was so horrific when they were talking to them, and then they mentioned a baby, and they said, oh, to have a baby you'd have to go into the elite plan, and like, oh man, it was horrible. Like, genuinely, so much things about life were taken away from her, you know, just from her ability to travel and enter different areas of the country, let alone abroad. Her ability to work, even her ability to sleep was taken up. Everything human about you was just stripped, and you were just a tool for their advertisement. It was so good. When the advertisement thing came in, it was so hard hitting, because it was like, shit, they're really doing that. Now, I've been on Spotify non-premium, yeah, where you have to skip a song. You can only skip 5 songs within an hour, and then suddenly you have an advert listening to all the time, and then you end up repeating that advert because you've heard it so many times. Same for YouTube. You know, you repeat the advert because you've heard it so many times. But this was literally an advert being streamed through you. It was such a good concept. Such a good concept. I want to move over to the characters in this episode. And we have Mike, played by Chris O'Dowd, and Amanda, played by Rashida Jones. But the more important person, I think, out of these characters, the main characters, was the head of the company. I believe it's Gaynor, played by Tracy Ellis Ross. I thought her character, she was so cold-hearted in how she was letting things off, like how she was telling them things that were genuinely horrific and non-applicable to them. They couldn't afford the top option, but when she was showing it to them, she was completely oblivious to the fact that they couldn't, and was selling it off. You know, companies and everything about those sort of institutions, they're all about upselling, get them to the next package deal, get them up to this. And it was like this lack of understanding that these are common people, they're regular people, they have a manual labor job and a teaching job. They can't afford those monthly payments. But she was so completely oblivious to that. And I thought she played the character so well. You've got to understand that she's on all these settings. So even though what she's saying is so cold-hearted, maybe she's turned the settings up to the max on certain things where she is completely objectively oblivious, because she's changing her brainwaves to manage that. I thought Mike was a completely devastating character as well. He did nothing but love his wife, tried to protect her, tried to save her, unknowingly caused her more pain, if anything, and more challenges. Same for him, though. He sacrificed his life for her, and I think that just, you know, a lot of people could say that that's realistic. Like, there's situations that would happen in a loving relationship like that, or if for anyone's loved ones, we sacrifice for them. He went to the above and beyond. Of course, going down the route for that on that site, doing the acts that he was, you know, frowning upon, but realizing, you know, when push comes to shove and he needs that money, he is drinking his urine. He did, as we saw at the end, pull out his teeth and things like that, but all for the reasons of his loved ones. And I think that changed your perspective as well. And so we're looking at this person before on that site, I think it's like dumbers or something like that, and we like, oh, why are they doing that? Well, there might be an element to what they're doing is they're in a very desperate state to fund certain things within their life. But then we see the shift and the perspective change when we see our protagonist, our main guy, Mike, go through the very same thing and the same decision to use that site as well. And then you change your perspective on the person you saw before that was for $20 drinking their own urine. Like, you change your perspective on them because you now see what struggles Mike's gone through and why he's choosing to do it. And it kind of makes you think, especially with like the world we live in, you know, cost of living, things like that, you know, aren't too alien to us anymore. That could be a realistic potential future where people will go onto sites, something like that, and do those things to make ends meet. And this was an extreme way to make ends meet because, you know, the technology that and the Rivermind monthly costs were so high. The final bit of this episode I want to talk about is just the twist as a whole. Now, this is a little bit different for Black Mirror. Sometimes the twist is abrupt and hard-hitting, and at the end of the episode, like Shut Up and Dance, like Playtest, where you're literally left completely shocked about what you've just seen, like you've realized the whole episode was a lie or misconstrued to you. This episode wasn't like that. The twist is quite early on established in the grand scheme of things. Around halfway through, we realized this wasn't what it was sold to be. And I think knowing that twist from the middle and then seeing what the twist basically caused them to do at the end it made it more harrowing because you saw the long process of them losing everything, the process of them slowly, you know, regressing in their marriage, in their lives, you know, getting fired. You could tell from the end of it that she probably hasn't been showering, like she's been sleeping tenfold because of what they were saying about to allow for the elite package. They need to now limit the service for the common package, basically meaning that your life is being cut in half. Oh, just 16 hours a night you now have to sleep. It was the twist I think was perfect because it showed like because it happened so early on and it was such a long time that we saw this technology causing so much pain and so many problems. Because we saw it for so long, it made it so much more hard hitting. And where like at the end, although it was horrible that he had to make that decision and they both decided for him to take her life, you could feel like there was probably an element of relief to it. There was no need to continue doing it anymore. But then again, I question this bit at the very end. Do let me know in the comments down below what you read this as. Now I'm trying to work it out. When Mike at the end of the episode goes into the room, I think he's got a razor and he's on the site. Do you think that was him going to another extreme to get more money, or do you think that was him taking his own life? And I think it was probably the latter, which again makes it even more harrowing. Like this technology that was sold to them as something that would save their lives and save her life and bring their lives back together from the inoperable tumor, in reality was something that took them further away from life as a whole to the extreme of them taking their own lives at the end. Like, oh man. What I like with Black Mirror is I actually do, as much as it's an anthology series, I watch it as they have put it forward. Like I really want to watch USS Callister. I've not watched it yet, but I watched 1, 2, 3 so far. I'm going to be doing videos for every single episode, as well as I said, a season 7 review. But you know, you watch episode, I watch it in order, and I think there's a reason they did this one first, because it kind of just, it brings you right back to what Black Mirror is. You know, a technological advancement that's really cool and really interesting, but deep down it is dark and sinister, and it didn't get much darker and sinister than this. Great episode. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about it. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10 overall. I really enjoyed the characters in it. I feel like you felt his pain throughout it, especially Mike's, the challenge and the, you know, the conflicting thoughts of what he should do and what he does do to make ends meet and to fund the Rivermind thing, the love that he has for her, you know, going to the extreme of purchasing the Rivermind Lux package for 12 hours on their anniversary. But even that you could tell that, you know, obviously she's on an extreme level, but what they did enjoy together, it kind of like showed you life isn't about having 100% serenity, about having 100% happiness, 100% this, because it was no longer human anymore. What they did was go to a very like meh, rubbish sort of hotel because it meant something to them. Back in the day, they would eat a very average burger and then call out the burger and call out the bad singers on the side. They would do that, but because she was on this fake wavelength, this 100% joy and pleasure, you know, it was all fake. It was all nothing to him. It didn't have that true meaning, that human meaning. And that also was a great little, you know, introspection onto, you know, emotions and things like that as well, because we're not supposed to have 100% anything. That's not human. Yeah, this episode was just great. I really enjoyed it, and it's made me so excited for the rest of season 7, which I'll be again going through in individual videos this week on the Floppylegss YouTube channel. So make sure you drop a sub if you want to see more. I've been Floppylegss, and I'll see ya when I see ya.